Alan Mendelsohn, The Boy from Mars by Daniel Pinkwater. Chapters 12 and 13. Chapter 12. We followed Samuel Klugarsh out of Maury's bookstore. He unlocked the door to his shop and we followed him in. "Klugarsh is sorry you were kept waiting," he said. "You didn't make an appointment, so of course I wasn't expecting you." "Actually, we just wanted to look around," Alan Mendelsohn said. "Oh, that's perfectly all right," Samuel Klugarsh said. "Look at anything you like, while Klugarsh gets the equipment ready." "Equipment?" I asked. "The best equipment," Samuel Klugarsh said. "My method of mind control is the most scientifically advanced, technologically perfect, and generally successful system of accelerated human growth ever devised by man. Oh, now where's that extension cord?" Alan and I looked at each other. Samuel Klugarsh was rummaging around, dragging all sorts of machines, tangles of wire, and rolled up sheets of paper from under tables. He set up a sort of easel and dragged a bench into the middle of the room. All over the room, there were signs like the ones on the outside of the store, yellow with red lettering. The signs all had slogans like, "Talk is cheap, action is expensive," and "Think before you think," and "Today is the yesterday you won't be able to remember tomorrow." Obviously, Samuel Klugarsh was setting up some sort of lecture or demonstration for us. "Mr. Klugarsh," I said, "we just came in to look at some books. We didn't plan to see your demonstration." "How do you know that?" Samuel Klugarsh asked. "Do you know what I'm going to demonstrate?" We admitted that we didn't. "Well then, how do you know you don't want to see it? Just look around and entertain yourselves. Klugarsh is almost ready," Samuel Klugarsh said. There were books about all sorts of weird stuff I had never heard of. Bean sprout therapy, messages from flying saucers, ancient health secrets of New Jersey, transcendental yoga, knee manipulation to increase brain power. There were also a lot of books with pictures of strange-looking guys on the covers. A lot of them had beards. All of them were staring into the camera with this strange expression, eyes open very wide. They had titles like Harold Platt, New Age Seer of Rochester, and Blanc, You Are a Pickle, The Blanc Pickle Master's Guide to Ego Submersion, and Fred Watanabe, The Divine Inner Self. "Gentlemen, please take your seats. Klugarsh is ready to begin his presentation," Samuel Klugarsh announced. Alan Mendelsohn and I sat down on the bench, facing Samuel Klugarsh, who was standing in front of the easel. On a table beside him were a bunch of odd-looking machines, square and made of metal with black, crackly paint on it. Some of them had tubes sticking out of the top and black dials with white numerals. On the easel was a great big drawing pad. The cover of the pad was turned back, and the first page showed a picture of what looked like an old-fashioned light bulb. Lettered above the light bulb were the words Klugarsh Mind Control System. Under the light bulb it said Inc. "Gentlemen, what you are about to hear and see will be the most astounding and revolutionary set of ideas to which you have ever been exposed. You may not understand everything right away. Some of these concepts are very deep. Klugarsh asks you to pay careful attention, and in the interest of time being saved, to please refrain from bursts of applause. Also, kindly try not to faint from astonishment. If you have any questions, Klugarsh will answer them at the end." Samuel Klugarsh flipped over the page of the big drawing pad. There was a magic marker drawing of something that looked sort of like a cauliflower. "Gentlemen, The human brain. The most exquisite mechanism on Earth, Samuel Klugarsh said. This drawing is the result of intensive work by Klugarsh Research Associates, Incorporated. Together with the Klugarsh Foundation, our organization has delved deeper into the secrets of the brain than man has ever done before. It is well known that human beings make use of no more than 10% of the potential power of the brain. If we were able to use 20% or even 15% of our brain power, we would all be geniuses and go down in history. There is no way to imagine what a human being would be able to do if he could utilize 100% of his brain power. Please keep this in mind during the rest of our little talk. I couldn't understand why it took Klugarsh Research Associates and the Klugarsh Foundation such intensive work to make the magic marker cauliflower brain drawing. It looked like an ordinary cartoon to me. Samuel Klugarsh flipped the page. There was a complicated drawing with all sorts of funny symbols connected by lines. It looked sort of like a schematic diagram of a radio or stereo set. I had seen one of those. It came with the stereo that was also a bar that my parents had bought for the living room in the new house. It was like one of those old-fashioned globes of the world, a big one that stands on the floor. You lifted the top half back on hinges, and there was your stereo, with AM and FM and a record player and an 8-track tape player, and around the inside edge of the globe were holes to put glasses and bottles into. This is a schematic diagram of a simple radio set, Samuel Klugarsh said. A 1934 RCA Victor radio. This very radio, in fact. He pointed to one of the machines on the table. Old-time radios, that's what they were. It doesn't look much like the brain in the first drawing, does it? But in fact, it is very much like that brain. Very much indeed. Look at this. Samuel Klugarsh flipped to the next page, and there was another schematic diagram, only instead of being sort of squared off, the lines which were supposed to represent the wires in the radio were curved. The whole picture had more or less the same shape of a cauliflower. Astounding, isn't it? Samuel Klugarsh said with a triumphant smile. Samuel Klugarsh had a long wooden pointer, and he pointed to the various symbols in the radio brain cauliflower drawing. He didn't say what they were, though. Yes, gentlemen, astounding, but not 1/2, not 1/10 as astounding as what I'm going to tell you now. Having discovered the uncanny similarity between the human brain and the radio receiving sets, I established the Klugarsh Psychical Phenomena Bureau. I began to collect little bits of information, piece things together, to study. I found out how to utilize the full 100% of my brain power. Now, this is the truly amazing part. Right now, while we're talking, I'm in direct communication with people on Mars. Alan Mendelsohn had been sort of sitting bent over on the bench with his elbows resting on his knees during Samuel Klugarsh's lecture. Every now and then when Samuel Klugarsh wasn't looking, he would poke me in the ribs. However, he was sitting up straight now. People on Mars? He asked. Of course, said Samuel Klugarsh. Long ago I perfected the art of teleportation or thought travel. Then, adding a few little extra details of my own, I developed that art to the point where I am, in effect, in 2 places at once. In fact, While we are having our very pleasant conversation here on Earth, I am also sitting in the office of the Martian High Commissioner for Extra Martian Transport, having a friendly chat with my old friend Ralzup, the Deputy High Commissioner. I am aware of my activities on Mars as I talk to you here, and I am aware of my activities on Earth as I sit sipping a cup of Fleegix with my friend Ralzup. What is Ralzup saying? Alan Mendelsohn wanted to know. Oh, I'm afraid I can't tell you that, Samuel Klugar said. Not that it is anything private or secret or confidential. It's only that it just isn't the done thing to carry messages from one world to another. There are certain restrictions of usage that come with extraordinary powers. However, if you decide to learn Klugarsh mind control, it won't be very long before you can go to Mars yourself. Ralzup, who is one of my students and therefore able to monitor our conversation, says it will be his pleasure to receive a visit from you both. You have students on Mars? I asked. Oh, yes, Samuel Klugarsh laughed. Many thousands of students. You see, the civilization on Mars is far more advanced than ours. Therefore, they instantly recognize the value of Klugarsh mind control. Here on Earth, it's quite another matter. People just aren't ready for the next step forward in evolution. But let me get back to my explanation. Samuel Klugarsh flipped the page of the big pad again. The next picture looked like a portable transistor radio with some wires coming out of it. This is the Klugarsh Mind Control Omega Meter, Samuel Klugarsh said. Klugarsh has perfected this instrument to help mind control students all over this world and others. The principle of the Omega Meter is this. As you know, the brain is constantly putting out electrical impulses. You may have heard of alpha, beta, and theta waves. These are the only ones science has discovered in man so far. That is, until Klugarsh discovered any number of other brain waves, the most important of all being the omega wave. The omega wave is produced in what I call state 26, which is an incredibly high state of creative consciousness in which we utilize 100% of our brain power. The use of the Klugarsh Omega Meter is very simple. It is based on the principle of biofeedback. The meter makes a continuous buzzing noise except when it receives omega waves. Then a tiny tape recording inside plays a few bars of jingle bells. To activate the omega meter, we clip one of these wires to each of our earlobes and meditate fiercely. The buzzing continues until we get to the point where we are producing omega waves. Then we hear the machine play jingle bells. Once we are able to produce omega waves, we can then do things which we previously thought were impossible. For example, visit Mars. We can also read the thoughts of others. We can control the actions of others. Of course, all of this takes practice, and you mustn't expect to be able to do it all at once. First, you have to learn to make the omega meter play jingle bells. Then you can learn to control the actions of others. That's the easiest thing. Somewhat later, you can learn to read the thoughts of others, and later still, you can learn to do thought traveling. to cause objects to move, to see into the past and the future, and to accurately predict the weather. Samuel Klugarsh flipped the page again. The next picture showed a man with a big smile on his face. This is a picture of a man who has completed the Klugarsh mind control course. As you can see, he is totally happy. This concludes my remarks. Now I will be happy to answer 3 questions. Chapter 13. Excuse me, Mr. Klugarsh, Alan Mendelsohn said, but a lot of what you were saying didn't make sense. Klugarsh said 3 questions, Samuel Klugarsh said. What you said wasn't a question. I'm not interested in your opinions. Try again. Excuse me, Mr. Klugarsh, Alan Mendelsohn said, but a lot of what you said didn't make sense, did it? That's better, Samuel Klugarsh said. And the answer is no, it didn't make sense to you. That is because you are ignorant. For example, do either of you speak Turkish? We both said we didn't. Wake waka needle noddle new hoop waka doop doop baklava. That's Turkish, said Samuel Klugarsh. You didn't understand what I said because you're ignorant of the language. To you it just sounded like gibberish. To a Turk it's the Pledge of Allegiance. Just a matter of point of view. I'm sorry, Alan Mendelsohn said. I didn't mean to put you down. Oh, there's no need to be embarrassed, my boy, Samuel Klugarsh said. Ignorance is nothing to be ashamed of until you figure out you've got it. Once you realize you're ignorant, if you don't do something about it, then you have the right to feel ashamed. So you mustn't feel bad that you have just told a great scientist and teacher that he doesn't make sense. Twice. You mustn't feel bad because you were speaking out of ignorance. After all, this is America. In some countries, in Iceland, for instance, things would be very different. But here, we give people a chance. Samuel Klugarsh was very red in the face. He was shaking his finger at Alan Mendelsohn and jumping up and down. We were a little scared of him. Alan kept glancing at me. He wasn't so fresh when he was outside of school. If a teacher had gotten that angry at him, Alan Mendelsohn would have enjoyed it. You little snot-noses, Samuel Klugarsh shouted. You come in here, and I give you the benefit of my years of study. I showed you the exact same lecture that I gave to the President of the United States, and it isn't good enough for you? What kind of parents do you have to let you grow up so impudent? Sit still! Alan and I were both thinking about streaking out the door. But how did he know that? Neither of us had moved a muscle. Samuel Klugarsh seemed to calm down a little. Sorry I lost my temper, boys, he said. But when you have devoted as many years as I have to a wonderful idea that is going to save mankind, and so many people don't even give you a chance to explain it to them, well, you get a little sensitive. Look, forget about the other 2 questions. You look like intelligent kids to me. Since you didn't understand my lecture, what I'll do is give you both the Klugarsh mind control course for half the usual price of 1 student. It usually costs $1,200. I'll let you both take it for $600. That's $300 apiece, guaranteed. If you don't make it to Mars in 5 years, you get a portion of your money back. We don't have $600, I said. No, I thought you didn't, Samuel Klugar said. What do you say to 150? 150? Samuel Klugar could see from our faces that he was getting nowhere. Look, how much can you kids spend? Alan and I still both had about $14 in change, some of which we needed to get back to West Kangaroo Park. What about $24? Alan asked. $24? You insult Samuel Klugar, Samuel Klugar said. However, I can do something for you for that price. Although it isn't as good as taking the whole course, I will give you for $24 a portable Omega meter and the first volume of the Klugar mind control course. This takes you through the basic Omega monitoring exercises into making people do whatever you want. It doesn't deal with reading the thoughts of others or teleportation, and it isn't guaranteed. Still, the regular price is $89.95. You're saving almost $66. And you can always sell the course to another seeker for $40. What do you say? Samuel Klugar had dug out and was holding a little green plastic transistor radio with 2 wires hanging from it. At the end of each wire was a shiny alligator clip. In his other hand was a black plastic 3-ring binder. Alan and I looked at each other. I decided I was going to do whatever he did. We'll take it, Alan said. Samuel Klugar handed us the transistor radio and the binder. The binder had a light bulb stamped in gold, like the one on the first page of the chart he had shown us. You could see where he had painted black over where it had said Hogborough Light and Power Company, and then in white paint had written Klugar Mind Control System, Inc. This Omega meter is disguised as a transistor radio, Samuel Klugar said. See, when you clip it to your ears and turn it on, you will hear a continuous buzzing. He clipped the alligator clips to my ears. It hurt, and turned it on. It buzzed. When you get so that you can produce Omega waves, it will play jingle bells, he said. Mr. Klugar, clip it on your ear so we can hear it play jingle bells now, said Alan Mendelsohn. I'm afraid I can't do that, you little fellow, Samuel Klugar said. You see, my Omega waves are so strong they would throw the machine out of adjustment. However, I can show you on my stationary Omega meter. Samuel Klugar pointed to another machine on the table, a big one with tubes and dials all over it. This one is a little more complicated than yours, Samuel Klugar said. He slipped on a leather headband with wires. His machine didn't clip to the lobe of your ear, and pushed a button. The machine played jingle bells until he pushed another button to stop it. You see, I am always in a state of Omega wave production, he said. Now, about the book, Samuel Klugar went on, removing his Omega meter headband. It will tell you exactly how to use the Omega meter, so I won't waste time on it now. The book is divided into 2 sections, using your Omega meter, and the second section, controlling the thoughts and actions of others. In connection with this, there is a formality of intergalactic law and usage that we must observe. When I point to you, say, I swear. Now, I promise never to use my power of mind control to steal money or overthrow the United States government. He pointed. We swore. Samuel Klugarsh put our Omega Meter and mind control course into a brown paper bag, and we handed him our $24. It occurred to me that this was the biggest thing I had ever bought entirely on my own. I mean, my mother has been giving me money to buy my own clothes for a long time, but she tells me how much I can spend on, say, a pair of shoes, and tells me what kind to get and where to get them. So things like that don't count. My half of the Omega Meter and mind control course at $12 was the most expensive thing I had ever purchased by myself. We said goodbye to Mr. Klugarsh and started walking toward the bus terminal. We were a couple of blocks away from Samuel Klugarsh's bookstore, carrying our package containing the mind control course and Omega Meter, when we saw a familiar, hunched figure. It was the Mad Guru. "Mornin' to you, gentlemen, mornin'," the Mad Guru said, sort of touching his cap and walking sideways. "What bus take ye?" "Take ye?" I asked. I didn't quite understand. Alan Mendelsohn did, though. "We're taking the West Kangaroo Park bus," he said. "And where do you get this good morning stuff? It's 2 PM." "Ah, the West Kangaroo Park bus, is it?" the Mad Guru said. "Well, some speak of her as an evil bus. Some say that the driver is mad and searches a white 68 Chrysler. Some say that all who ride in her are doomed. But I say, mornin' to you, gentlemen, mornin', mornin'." The Mad Guru half backed, half walked sideways around a corner and out of sight. "That was spooky," I said. "He doesn't scare me," Alan Mendelsohn said. "I've read Moby Dick." So ends Chapter 13, Alan Mendelsohn, The Boy from Mars.